will be walking in at some point pretty soon, I think. Richard was communicating with him. He was teaching a class, but he's now on the faculty at USF. But he did work in the Bell Labs, RCA Laboratories, for many years. So he'll be joining us with a point of view where he has transitioned from working in industry into academics. So he's teaching now some of the things that he saw were needed by students. So, okay, I'll start there. So all I'm going to do is try to make sure you don't talk about yourself and your company too long so we can get to the other questions.
Hi, my name is Al Card, quality engineer, Six Sigma black belt at Southern Manufacturing Technology, here in Tampa, Florida. 20,000 square foot building, about 100 employees, 21 CNC machines. We do precision machine parts that go on a lot of aircraft. Any plane that's in the air right now has our parts on them. Satellites, military, commercial stuff as well. I've been with them for 23 years. Right out of high school on Long Island, I started working for Grumman Aerospace, building planes. We started getting friendly with Russia. The Cold War started dropping off. Defense budget started getting cut. So I upped and left and moved to Florida. Switched careers a little bit. Got from the manufacturing side into the quality side. And like I said, I've been there for 23 years now.
Where are you really located?
We are very, very close to the airport. You know where the bowling alley is on Hillsborough?
Sure.
We're almost a golf club drive away. We could go bowling for lunch.
Well, I think you have some equipment out of this world too, on Mars.
We do. We have. I have parts that I had in my hand that are on Mars right now. We have parts that we make that, you know, when the kids come on tours and go through the shop, you know, I always have to try to get in their heads and try to, what can I say to the kids that will get their attention? So, you know, I asked them, Call of Duty, you know, video games. All the kids love video games. Call of Duty, who knows what a javelin is? And they all raise their hands. I said, we have parts that are on the javelin. And then the kids are interested. They want to know. Show me that part. I want to see what that part is. And, you know, as I tour them through in inspection and stuff, and I talk about a CMM and stuff, I'll always ask them, you know, who's played Battleship? Everyone raised their hand. Like one person, I think, in my entire career of giving these tours, didn't raise their hand, doesn't know what Battleship is. But it's a coordinate game. It's A through J, 1 through 10. I said, well, I have a machine that works like that. Instead of A through J, it's the X-axis. I have a Y-axis. But I tell them, it's like Battleship on steroids. It's got a Z-axis too. You know, I'm playing 3D. And you know, you get into their heads, and that's when you know you have them. That's when you finally know. Then the questions start coming.
Okay, yeah.
Well, Al stole all my thunder.
Oh, yeah.
See, Al and I work together. And Joe Paciella, been with Southern Manufacturing for 24 years. Originally from Long Island, New York, like him. There's a history there too. And moved down to Florida, started working same place. That's how we kind of met each other, was at another place in Florida, manufacturing. And then I went over to Southern Manufacturing, called him up about a year later, said, Al, why don't you come on over here? So he gets to play with all the fun toys and inspection. I get to sit out there and work in the manual deburring and work with tools and watch chips fly all over the place. But yeah, we manufacture everything. Any part of an engine, I think we put parts on it. 737s are primarily the biggest ones that we're working with now, and they're switching over to a different engine, and we have working with that as well. My biggest, I don't know how to say it. My biggest moment there that I enjoy is during manufacturing day, because we probably do about 12 tours.
Yeah. That
month, and just different age students, and some of the students get it, some of them you could tell just, you know, it's a day out of school, we're happy. But when you see like one or two of them that really are interested and really want to learn, and they have question after question after question, it's a big you know thing that I swell up, and I really like to see it. I really do. What else? Yes, we have parts on Mars, and that's one of the things I always tell the kids. I always tell the kids this. So we made parts for the rover that landed on Mars, and then the little rover came out and took off, and then it broke. And we made parts for the other rover that went out and found the one that broke. And I know the first one didn't break. It was only supposed to go for a month. But as soon as you tell them that, we got parts on Mars, their eyes light up and they want to hear more about it. What do you make it out of? How do you do this? How do you do that? So, and they want to learn. They just, some of them, like I said, some of them just want to suck all that information in. And it's so good to see it. It really is. The other thing I tell them, you can never get enough education. You can never get enough education. I don't care how old you are, but you can never get enough education. So you teachers out there are doing a great job. Keep it up.
Well, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How do I get my kids from middle school to come and take
If
a
you see
tour?
me after this,
I would like to.
I'll give you a
Yes,
number
thank
and a
you.
name that you can contact,
Okay.
because we do shop tours, and it's a routine. We have it depends on how many students, and I don't mean it depends on how many students you can bring. It depends on if you have 40 students or whatever, we'll have six different people doing a shop tour. If you have less than that, we'll bring it down to 4 people, but we all have our little workstations and we take them through it and we hand them off to another guy and another
Okay.
person, another
Right.
person.
Rehearsals, I think.
Oh, it is. It's amazing.
That sounds great.
Wow,
Thank
look
you.
at-
I teach middle school science, and I know
Bring
I've got a
it.
handful of kids that.
Oh,
And it doesn't,
direction.
just because manufacturing days are over, it doesn't mean you can't come by. So after this, I'll give you a name and a
Thank
number.
you.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
all Skype?
No. I barely turn my phone on. No, we don't do any of that. We don't do any of that. I barely turn my computer on, but
We did have a Facebook, Facebook Live this last
yes, we did do that. Yes, we did do that.
Manufacturers Day. Yes?
It's on
What
Native,
age,
on that postcard,
students
says Made
do
in
you
Florida. Yeah,
take on the tours?
We go middle school and up.
It's
Yeah,
not
well-
elementary?
We've done elementary school.
I think we have done an elementary school. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
We have.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the biggest group that you can take?
We had over 40 people
We've
and
had over 40, and we've had.
Oh, I'm thinking the entire grade level, like 140.
we'd have to break that up. We'd have to break that up into a couple of days, I think.
of days.
I'm excited now.
We only have about 110 employees on days and nights total, so to take 140 people in.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's move on from the tour quiz.
But you work 24 hours a day? You said?
Yes, ma'am.
24/7 we work.
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
We have 2 shifts, 7 to 3:30, 3:30 to 2, and then we have some overlapping people that come in at 2 or 3 o'clock, and they'll stay till 1, 1:30.
Right, as well as lights out running. We can load machines up and hit cycle start on them that will run for 3 hours while nobody's there.
While nobody's there. And then we'll come
And
in.
then we come in and unload and
another
check
crew
them.
will unload them and then reload them and send the pallets away and keep going.
Hey, Peter.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. So I grew up in the area. I'm
Yay.
from town and country. I went to Lathrop High School down the street.
Yay,
from
let
here.
go.
Right on, right on.
Totally.
So I did a few years in the Marine Corps first, right after high school, and then came back and went to college. Went to HEC and busted my hump there to earn a full scholarship into BU, where I got at Boston University, to get my aerospace engineering degree. And then I fortunately was hired right into GE Aviation, which is one of the world's largest jet engine manufacturers. They own a great deal of the market share in the commercial market. But I was a design engineer on the military aircraft engines, for example, the F-18, and then did commercial stuff. And then I went work for a large machine shop like these guys, and then at some point in time, my wife and I had children. We wanted them to grow up around kids, so we moved back home, and I started working for a British aerospace company over in St. Pete that designed the stuff that these guys built. Their SMT was one of our large suppliers. So, and I think the Mars stuff might have been Cobham stuff.
It was,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
So it was,
The Javelin missile
Javelin.
system definitely
Some of the
was.
Javelin
Yeah.
stuff was.
Yeah. And so I met these guys a number of years ago. Aerospace is a really tight community, very tight community. And so over time, I switched from Cobham. Cobham closed doors actually over there in St. Pete and consolidated in other facilities in other states. And I started working for Chromalloy. And then most recently at Seal Dynamics. And Seal Dynamics here in Tampa, we reverse engineer aircraft and aircraft engine components and then sell them aftermarket. So you guys know, like Advanced Auto Parts or Napa or Pep Boys, we're like that of the aircraft industry. So we help keep your airline tickets low by offering lower cost, not cheap, lower cost components to those airlines to replace parts and so forth like that. So like when you need an oil change, how many of you guys need an oil change? You're like, I can go another month. Well, aircraft owners or operators, they don't have that luxury, and rightfully so, because when you're at 35,000 feet flying your plane, you want to make sure it's properly maintained, right? So our parts that we reverse engineer have to meet the exact, have to be as good or better than the original equipment manufacturers. And again, SMT is one of our suppliers, as well as many other manufacturers in the area. We use a lot of locals, sometimes international, but but definitely it behooves us if we can just go across town to talk to one of our manufacturers when we're trying to introduce new product to the industry and so forth. But so that's what we want to do. I just want to add that we're extremely fortunate to have Rich and Marilyn here, part of FLATE. They're just a wonderful resource to the state. I was at the Made in Tampa Bay Expo that was held at Del Mabry campus a couple weeks ago, and we were very fortunate to have the governor show up and take part in that. And I mentioned to him, I happen to be the chair of the Industrial Advisory Committee for FLATE, and so I had to plug FLATE, and he knew it. He knows all well about it. It's important for the state that it promotes this kind of stuff. I mean, if you just think on a day-to-day basis, everything that you use that makes your life better is manufactured, right? And so the question is, where is it being manufactured? Is it being manufactured in our state? Is it being manufactured in our country, or somewhere else? And so if you look at a third world country, and I know third world countries because I lived in them, the people that are living their daily lives are manufacturing their own stuff. They're making their own food, they're making their own energy, things like that. So as our quality of life grows, you'll notice that you're separated from the manufacturing process, right? And so we here, we help make your lives better in many different aspects. But as I said earlier, I'm in awe of all of you. You're educators. You're freedom fighters on the front lines. And I appreciate you guys so much. That's me. On Reese.
I'm Reese Thompson. I was also born and raised right here in Hillsborough County, and went to Hillsborough Community College for 2 years, then came out to USF for another 3 years, and got my degree in chemical engineering, and co-opted some of the phosphate mines, and then went to work for a company called Milliken that makes cloth, and it looked like that was kind of going overseas, so I came back to Florida and got a job with Adams Air and Hydraulics. I've been there for 32 years, and basically what we do is we help people like y'all keep your machinery running and automate it and get it in a more productive environment. Loaded robots. I mean, when we first started working, or when I first started working there, I told people we push, pull, and turn things. And that was it. Basically, we had cylinders, valves, and now we have robots, we have vision systems, we have called aluminum extrusion that you can put things together to make Six Sigma projects that will make products more efficiently. So that's what we do now. I tell people basically what I do is I have the job of how they make things. So I go out to different factories and we work with your engineers to help make things more efficient. And my wife's a teacher, and she graduated. She retired about 1.5 years ago, and I am in awe of teachers as well. And you guys do a great job, and it's a wonderful profession. Thank you.
My name is Ken Jorgensmeyer. I'm the Director of Manufacturing Operations for MyTech USA out of Tampa, Florida. I originally grew up on a farm in western Missouri, and I started out my career when there were still slide rules, which this guy knows very well, and Richard back there knows.
I do.
So, and you do well. So we did slide rules, and we get this one step above an abacus, if anybody. But we had pencil and vellum. I was in engineering, drafting. Started out in drafting actually, and moved into more of an engineering function and took some more engineering courses at some of the local colleges there in Kansas City. And eventually moved into more of a quality function, and then well into marketing, sales, and then more of a leadership role with the organization. I was in Carrier Corporation, remanufacturing several of the large companies, Sears for a while, and then I picked up this position locally here about 4 years ago with MyTech. And we're manufacturing in about 100,000 square foot facility. We run 14 presses, 2-shift operation, and it's not as exciting technologically as what these folks over here do. But within it, there is a lot of challenges in technology, as well as issues associated with thinking processes and knowledge of how you actually get things done. The way we take our approach to the workforce is that we've moved away from the old authoritative type of approach of manufacturing, that this is the way it's going to be, you shall follow this, and you are to do this. It's more of a participative type, the old theory X, theory Y. Anybody recognizes that in leadership? We're now moving more, we are in a participative type. And when you're in participative type, MyTech takes the approach of saying, we're paying you for not just your strength and working effort that you're doing, but also for your mind. And so when we do that, it's amazing what happens. The workforce I have a pleasure of leading is that they do, I just point them in a direction to make sure that they're not going off in another direction, but within a direction that the corporation wants us to go in. And when they do that, amazing things can happen, and amazing things can occur from that. So, and that goes back to like what Carol was saying here, is that teachers are extremely important in setting up that mindset early on in life. And what we have to do here my role here, because I moved the company from in this particular location, from an authoritative to a participative, because they did not want to do that. I had to pull them along very diligently, and it was difficult. I mean, so the reason why is because they were afraid to say anything. Mm-hmm. And then, because as teachers, if you take that approach, what she's saying is that you learn early on. But if you get beaten down in your first job, then you won't want to go out there and do anything more than what you're just paid to do. Mm-hmm. So leadership is extremely important to drive that beyond strictly the K through 12, and then in the job function that you're getting as well. So we have doubled in production, same number of people. We're moving away from the standard just pound it out type thing and fix it when it breaks, to a more proactive approach and participative approach, and it's a teamwork now. So it's a real pleasure to work with folks like that, and that's kind of my story. So, all right, Paul?
I'm Paul Schnitzler. I'm on the faculty here at the university. And first I'm going to say, I met Ken, 4 years ago, something like that. And everything you just said is what he does. He does do what he was saying. And the reason I'm particularly interested is what I do currently is I teach engineers to become leaders. What I teach them to do is to do what Ken does. And sadly, many managers just don't do that. And you can walk into an operation, a store, a restaurant, anything, and within a few minutes you know whether managers know what they're doing. When you see people working like they enjoy what they're doing and doing a really good job at it, you know managers know what they're doing. My background is not psychology, which you might have guessed from this. I'm an electrical engineer. I spent my early years at Bell Laboratories and RCA Laboratories, but I worked for companies as diverse as Time Magazine, and a company in California that makes telecommunications equipment hardware. I led development of undersea telephone systems, which turned into the proof that led to every undersea system today being made with fiber optics. It was a pleasure to do that. I did that in a project I knew nothing about, because what I did is I turned to the people in the team and said, guys, none of us know anything about this and we've got to do it. Let's figure out how to do it. And we all collectively figured out how to do it. What this fellow was talking about a minute ago. So you do it in manufacturing, I was doing it in development, and you do it anywhere. I've worked in a wide range of things. Most of my career was in industry. I've only been here 13 years. Before that, I worked for the companies I mentioned and a number of others, did consulting. I worked in such diverse things. I mentioned NSC telecommunications. I worked in video cameras and video recorders for broadcast. One of my projects won a television Emmy for technical excellence. Done some interesting things. I am now teaching engineers to be leaders, which I thoroughly love. Engineers are often thought of being the worst possible managers. And the thing is, sadly, that's often true. The good news is, engineers make excellent students of the tools of management and can be among the best leaders you can find, which is why I love what I do. I understand, I don't know how this all started, but I understand the subject here is innovation. Would you like me to comment a little on that?
Well, we can just go to the next question because I think that
Excellent,
involves
okay.
it takes us to some innovation. And I think now we don't really need to, we can just have a conversation because there's so many. I don't think we want to go down and have everybody spout out. That'll be too, well, I'll fall asleep, sorry. You guys might fall asleep as well. But just have a conversation around the points that we kind of focus on, the questions that Deborah and I worked up. And the first one is, how does innovation and or creativity blend into your company's culture or business? Now, we heard a little bit about that, just setting the stage for the operations maybe to engender creativity, but then how does it actually happen in the workplace? So everybody jump up at once.
I can speak to that first, actually.
Okay.
So
There you go, you gotta be aggressive.
last week actually, Bama had a guest speaker at a Bama night. Bama's a Bay Area Manufacturing Association, which I believe a large part of us are members of. And he talked about Uberization. And one of the interesting things about Uber, who here uses Uber? There you go. All right, how long has Uber been around? Can you remember? 5 years. So 5 years. So you guys know about the medallions in New York?
Yeah.
So the taxi medallions, right? In order to run taxis in New York, and you had to have a medallion. This thing's $1.5 million in dollars. Those things are now running about $400,000 because of Uber, which has only been around for like 5 years, right? So if you think about innovation, you think about like the horse and buggy driver, or that, you know, back in the early 1900s or whatever, saw an automobile go down the road. He had like 10 years to react to that, right? Before Ford was spitting out Model Ts, right? Right? And so 20 years ago, 30 years ago, how many of you were buying Kodak film?
Oh,
Right? Who's buying Kodak film now?
My mom.
Nobody.
Nobody owns cameras anymore. They want a camera.
My point being that we don't have the luxury of not being innovative. We have to. So out of my company, we only have 32 people at our facility. We had 8 people of our company at that talk, 4 of which were from my team. I have about 10 people on my team, including myself. And then we had a company meeting on yesterday, and our vice president runs a general manager preached it. We want input from everyone. It's not a luxury to anybody that's running a profitable business that expects to be around for a while to not be innovative. You have to. So constantly on a day-to-day basis. Remember, right now I'm in a class at HCC. I go Wednesday nights, and to keep myself up to speed with current technologies, so that I can go back and teach it to my people and implement it across the floor. It's necessary. It's not a luxury to just sit back on your laurels, because if you do, you're going to end up like the Kodaks and the Polaroids and so on and so forth.
And if I could add, I'm sorry, go ahead, you had a question.
What class are you taking?
Visual Basic, actually. It's an easy programming.
Basic.
Yeah. It's a programming language, not the most current one. It just so happens that our robotic inspection equipment for advanced programming and the software that it uses, you can use VB script in order to do advanced programming in it.
Okay, to add, I was going to add to what Pete's saying there is that it's easy to bring a problem. I got this, I don't know how to figure it out, can you figure it out? and just kind of throws a grenade on the table and walks away. I said, oh, no, wait a minute, come right back here. Here's the problem. You work it every day. What's the solution? And first off, when that happens, like, oh my gosh, I got to actually think about how to solve this thing. I always let somebody else solve it before. So now with the ability, with that open ability to say, would you solve it? If you were able to do this and you had unlimited resources and unlimited funding, how would you solve this problem? So when you do that, you start creating more different thinking processes, and then versus a method of just giving the problem away. So you have to have the ability in the management side to truly believe in your people. And if you got to make sure that the management has to understand that people are the number one resources that they have, period. And if they don't do that and believe that, you'll see it in the output of the people, because they won't really care after a period of time. So it has to start at the very top, the CEO, has to get down to the VPs, got to go to the directors, and right on down to the supervisors. And then themselves, and to be able to believe in themselves, to be able to come up with a solution to a problem that comes to the table. So if you start allowing to solve the problem for them, then you didn't bring them along. Mm-hmm. They haven't gotten any further in their development, just like Carol was saying here in this presentation.
You talk about innovation. Innovation when in our company, we don't make any of our own parts. We make parts for other customers. Like your company will come to us and show us a print, and we look at the print and determine and bid it. And if we have the right bid, they'll place an order with us. It doesn't come with instructions on how to make. So we have to be innovative. We have to look at that part and sit down with a team of our new parts team with engineers and inspectors and manufacturing people and figure out how we're going to make it. There's no instructions. It doesn't come with, okay, take part number 1 and part number 2 and glue them together. We have to figure out how to make them. How are we going to hold them? How much extra material do we need to be able to hold this part, to be able to machine it, and be able to flip it around and still cut off that and still meet all the requirements of the prints. So, innovation is every day. And that's every day.
After that, just to tee off on that, the job is done and we put it to bed. Well, then they call us and they want more. So we send out the review package, which goes back through the managers, supervisors of that area. And they have to look at it, and the president says, okay, now we're going to take cost out of it. Now you're really going to start thinking. So now you got to sit there and think, well, it took me this long to do. Well, you got to close your ears because we do your parts. We're not going down lower. So now you have to sit there and you have to figure out how can you get it cheaper. How can you make this part cheaper? Still selling at the same price, but how are we going to make more money on this? So now you got a group of people sitting around the table going, well, what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? And our owner, the president of the company, he's allowed us to do that. Now, yeah, he has a final say. But I would say 90, 70, 85% of the time he'll say, you're good. You're good. Some of the times he thinks we're a little crazy, but... So,
how is 3D printing offering to change the way manufacturing works?
Us at SMT, I can't say we use a lot. We use 3D printing. We don't have one. However, we had just purchased a piece of equipment, a laser marker. And we're doing a lot of our laser marking in-house instead of sending it out. And our engineering department will make fixtures for multiple parts for us. And instead of sending that to the tool room, we'll take it to a 3D printer facility, and they'll make this 3D model, if you will, and within hours, where it would take us weeks in the tool room to make it, it'll be within hours, and they'll give it to us, and we'll go ahead and use that as our fixture, just to literally hold the part while we do laser marking.
In our business where we have it's a stamping operation, and we make truss plates. So we make them by the millions of pounds of truss plates. So truss plate is one that goes on a truss to build into your home, okay? Like goes in the ceiling of your home, and it holds truss together. It's a plate. It's got a lot of nails on it.
Right.
So it's pounding day in, day out, and you get a lot of wear on your equipment. And so what 3D is what we utilize is that the parts the die was made in 1974. The prints were pencil on vellum. I remember those days. Pencil on vellum, and then you didn't have electronically. And then through the years, numerous people made alterations to that part and never marked it down, or very bad document control we had. I'll admit it right now. So the issue then was, we got a part. How does that part? How do you make this part? Well, there's wear parts on it. So we put it under an optical scanner. There's no drawing on it. If there was a drawing, it wouldn't be accurate. So there's no drawing on it. We put the part underneath the scanner, and then we modify the scan data to where it gets back to flat to meet to the other mating part. Send it to code into an NC machine, remake the part, because it's unique to that particular die. So it improves and speeds up the process of actually making another part. So there's a lot of technology in understanding that. There's a lot of data review of that. There's understanding of how the part fits to another part. So it's a lot of more so than just running a stamping press. You have to understand how the whole thing works together. Yeah.
If I can add, we've thrown in a couple of acronyms. For example, CNC, computer numerically controlled, essentially a robotic manufacturing machine. To answer your question regarding, to expand on the 3D printing, especially in the aerospace, the materials required for a lot of, especially critical components, 3D printing is not at a level yet that provides the material properties that are necessary for components, especially within the hot section of the jet engine. They're just not making out of nickel alloys yet. Where they do come into example, and a local company, a world-class casting facility here in Tampa called Chromaloy, they use 3D printing to make the ceramic molds that are then used as part of the manufacturing process for the end product. But I know some of the things that we're looking at our companies, as far as innovation goes, what can we make, like inside the interior of the aircraft, maybe your armrest or the latch holding up your tray table, are those things that make use doing 3D printing. It's just that sometimes if it's one-off kind of stuff, like if you're doing 1 to say 200 small, that might make use of 3D printing, but I can print it, I can make that product a lot cheaper with injection molding or something like that. So it comes down to money. What's it cost? If I do injection molding, I got to invest 50 grand in the tools. Whereas in a 3D printer, all I have to do is send them a 3D IGES file or something like that with a couple $100. So it depends on how many do they need, what's the cost, and so forth like that. So, but for the most part, especially with jet engines and critical components on an aircraft, 3D printing is just not making the materials yet. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Awesome.
We'll receive 3D prints or molds, if you will, from parts that one of our customers up north wants us to make, and they'll send us, a mold, a model of it that we'll use. This way, when the engineers are looking at it, they have an idea, instead of it being on a piece of paper in 3D or just a piece of paper, they have it in their hand and they're looking at it going, oh, that's what that looks like and that's what this is. So that does help out, but as far as what Pete's saying, as far as the application on engines, not yet anyway.
They're really good for just quick problem solving and corrective actions too. So for example, at a facility I worked with here in the Tampa area, they're the only company in the world that does an aftermarket high pressure turbine blade. And a high pressure turbine blade works in the hot section. It's about 18, 2,000 degrees in the hot section of the engine. Those materials, those parts are operating at temperatures that are right at their melting point, right? And so they pipe colder air, which is like 400 or 500 degrees or whatever, from the compressor into the hot section and goes up through the hollow core of those turbine blades, which are, again, manufactured here in the Tampa area. Hoorah. So the process by which those little tiny holes, they're like 15 thousandths of an inch in diameter, 30,000, really tiny. If you think a sheet of paper is about 4 thousandths of an inch thick, right? So it's a special process which they use electrical discharge machine. They're essentially using electrical charges to zap away the material, right? So those cathodes that come down and zap that away, some of our people weren't loading it into the orifice correctly, so that it was guiding down into the part. Those blades are about $7,000 a pop. If you get one of those holes out of location, goes in the trash, right? There you go. A couple of those is a boat, car, right? So we're like, hey, if we had a little funnel we could stick on there to help them guide it in, because they're tiny cathodes. I mean, they're as small as a hole, right? And a human being is only so good. So how can we make our process more robust? Right, and that's what we get as manufacturing quality engineers is designing the process to incorporate the human element into it, right? And so we're like, hey, we had these little funnels. You know what? We got a little 3D printer, pop those out in about 2 hours. Printed out a whole bunch of them, and we saved ourselves thousands upon thousands of dollars in scrap material. So they're really good for that.
I have a comment on innovation and creativity in this thing, which is what's on this slide right here. Particularly at you. By the way, I echo the comments before. You guys are so important, because our world is dependent on the people that come out of your schools, and you are going to. Maybe you don't think about it, but you make a difference in the world. You absolutely do.
You're here.
Don't stop. Don't stop. So here's something you might want to think about. You will have students in your classes who, some will say, everybody talks about being creative, I'm not creative. And they really believe that, and it gets in the way of doing stuff. So let me give you a little riff on creativity. I worked at RCA Laboratories for a number of years. I was a research head, and I had this man come in to see me, and he was down in the dumps, one of my engineers. And I said, what's the matter? He said, well, I don't know, I'm just not creative. Now, remember, RCA Labs has a lot of creativity. It doesn't exist anymore. Well, but, and I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, Bob, a guy he works with, he's creative. Now, Bob is measurably creative. At that time, he had 50 granted patents. If an engineer in his entire career gets 5 or 6, he will have done really well. And many engineers get 1 or 2, maybe not even that. This guy had 50 granted patents. Jim is working with Bob. Jim is looking at Bob and saying, I'm not creative. I looked at him, I said, but you are. He said, what do you mean? If I have a problem and I need help in solving it, I want you on the team, because you are the world's best problem solver. And if that's not creative, I don't know what is. He said, really? And he knew, and he realized he's been on many such teams, specialty teams in the company, over and over again. So here's the thing. Creativity takes many flavors. And it's really important to make sure you help people that don't see themselves as creative to see how they are in other ways creative. So that's part A. Part B of my song and dance on this is that there are, I think, 3 important stages in the creative process, in the kind of thing that goes on in industry. One is you identify a problem, and you need somebody to find an answer to that. And I consider that what people normally call the creative step. But there's another really important step. Somebody's got to come along and be able to take that idea and prove that it will work, demonstrate it, make a working model, whatever it is, prove it'll work. And then you need somebody that can take that and turn it into something you can sell out the door. And it turns out, rarely can the same person do all of those things. Mm-hmm. Turns out I'm the middle kind of guy. Give me somebody else's idea, and while I'm going to all go with it, until we're in manufacturing, and then I need somebody else, because I don't know. We need guys like you. Yeah. And so, when you're working with young people, and I don't care whether they're at grade school or middle school or high school, they're going to be people, your students, somebody's going to tell them, you're not creative. Don't let anybody get away with doing that. That's like, and I'll bet you identify with this one. How many people have you seen, or maybe you've heard yourself being told, oh, you just listen, don't sing, please. Right? And that's, to me, utter nonsense. I sing, And I have, in my life, many times helped coach somebody who was one of those people, including my first wife. And it got to the point where she actually got up on a stage and sang in public and was perfectly good. But you're lying to somebody when you say you can't sing. Now, I have found one person in my entire life who couldn't hold a tune. And interestingly, the same person was totally colorblind. And I suspect there's a brain issue that relates to both of those things. But I don't know that.
I'm colorblind and I can't sing. I sing. I love singing, but
I don't know. It's a one piece of data. I don't know if it's valid, it's extendable or not, you know. But so I encourage you to encourage your students, even if they think they're not creative, help them see the different ways they might be creative. Because that can be a huge blessing. You can get a child to just suddenly light up when they realize, oh, I'm creative differently. How about that? My 2 cents.
So wow, I think it's really kind of interesting because we have some people here who make things. We have some people here from another manufacturer some people who design, some people who make it, and then some who, what was I going to say? Who make the machine to make it happen. Yeah. So Reese does that at making the automation equipment. So here's
I
a
like
product.
one of the things that you said was it takes different mindsets.
Yeah.
And what our guys, we have a sales team, and we have the outside sales guys who are the gregarious guys. They go out, they know everybody in the factory, they know what they're doing. They learn your processes, but they may not know how to come up with the solution, but they'll find the problem.
Yeah.
And then they'll bring in the specialist that maybe, let's say you wanted to have a camera to look and see if this lid was put on correctly. The specialist knows how to come in and look at that camera, knows how to get with the right kind of lighting, how many pixels you need, that type of thing. And then we have guys that will look at the economic side of it, and how can we make that payback? Is there an ROI? If you lose 10 bottles, is that enough of a problem? Well, it may screw up the machine and kill half your production. Maybe you only lost 10 bottles because this lid was not put on right, but if it got into the machine and you lost half a day's of production, that was, you know, thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. So I like exactly what you said. Everybody has their niche and what they have to do to...
And they need to be respected for what they're doing.
I agree.
That goes along with what Ken was saying in terms of really valuing what they can contribute in their own way. And by golly, the whole place just lights up when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks,
I have a question for each of the gentlemen. When you think about your school experience, I don't mean university school, I mean elementary, middle, high school experience. What were some of the experiences that you had during those years that prepared you for the work that you're doing now? What were the positive, solid experiences, if any, let's hope there were many, that prepared you?
I'll step up to the plate for a second.
Again, you will, because I started my teaching career at Lakeville High School. I'm very serious. I think that these folks here, that's what they need to hear.
Yeah.
They need to hear what they can do in their world today that prepares people like you and the mindsets that you have.
Yep. So I recommend you go get it. It's a 15-minute read, maybe. Message to Garcia. It's on the Marine Corps reading list. I read it as a young Marine. A lot of people don't know that Marine Corps has a reading list. Marines are required to read so many books a year. It's an essay written in about 1899, I believe. And I require all my interns to read it, and all of my direct reports as well. And it's about, in part of the story, it's during the the Spanish-American Revolution down in Cuba, and back when Roosevelt was a Rough Rider and that, and at some point in time, some guy said, hey, we got to get this message to Garcia down there in Cuba. And they called in the courier, and he gave the message to the courier, and the courier walked off. Some 2 weeks later, came out the other side of Cuba. And And that's all they mention about that. But what they talk about the rest of the book is they didn't ask, hey, who's Garcia? How do I get down there? What do I eat while I'm down there? No, I just went and did it. Here's the mission. Go and do it. I don't expect you to ask me a bunch of questions out of it. That's what I pay you for, right? So I give my people those books, or that book to read. And I tell them, I said, look, if I give you the mission, I expect you to go and try to accomplish that mission. Now, if you start to grind your wheels, I don't pay you to grind your wheels, you come and ask me for a little assistance, for some help. But you better daggone give it a good solid try first. Teach your kids independence.
That's hard.
Self-respect.
That's hard, isn't it?
Right?
It's hard to.
I'm telling you, read the book first and then preach it.
But what about your high school experience? What did you do in high school? Or what did your teachers do?
Unfortunately, I was a knucklehead in high school. It took 6 years in the Marine Corps to straighten me out. No, of course, all the coursework, and there's at some point in time, there's the individual that require. How much of the. You give me somebody that has the aptitude and the desire to work and be part of a team. You give me 4 people like that, and I'll rule the world. I can teach them all they need to know at my facility. We just hired a young lady the other day, and out of the candidates, she was at least qualified with technical knowledge for her job. But what she had most of was the desire, the fit in our culture, right? That I said that's who we got to hire, right? And so, bam, she's doing a bang up job, just balls to the wall. I'm so happy we made the choice, right? So, like I said, we can teach. There's so much we can teach out of work, but if you don't step into that role, that person, they don't have that. I don't know. What's the metric that you put on that, guys? You know?
I'm not sure, but the question I'm hearing is, what did you get in your high school and stuff to get you where you are today?
Yeah.
And your math, your science, your shop classes, engineering, stuff like that. That's all I have. The people that we have in our shop, they're innovative, they're creative, and everything like that. But college isn't for everybody.
Right.
There's a lot of kids out there that it's just not right. It wasn't right for me. But I'm doing that stuff right now. And everybody we hire in our shop is that way. You don't need a college degree to do what we're doing in our shop. Not one position in our entire shop floor do you need a college degree. Is that bad telling teachers that right now? No, but not every kid in your class is going to be scholars and want to go to college. Some people want to get out of school and they want to be done with school.
Or go to HCC or one of the technical.
Right. We have apprenticeship programs and stuff. When we hire on, we could teach them from there how to run the machines. I went through Six Sigma classes. I've been away to learn how to run the CMM, that battleship machine. But it was all aftermarket stuff. I went to USF here to get my supervisors and management certificate and stuff like that. But I don't have a 2-year degree. I don't have a 4-year degree. It's not, you don't need that to be in that industry. You could still be innovative and creative and not go to college.
What I got from the question, if I can, when I was in New York going to school, I was a little bit of like a knucklehead. To the point where I was sent to Virginia to live with my grandparents and go through a Christian military school. It's the best thing for me, believe it or not. Taught me discipline, Board of Education on the seat of knowledge, came into play a few times. But one of the things I did get out of it was I remember vividly working in our math class, and I couldn't solve a problem. I couldn't get it. And I kept struggling. The teacher looked at me and she said, "You can do it." And I said, "No, I can't. I can't figure this out." She goes, "No, you can do it. You just got to have 2 things." And that stuck with me to this day. Heart and desire. Heart and desire. And I've taught my sons that. And every student that goes through our tour, I've told them the same thing. You have to have heart and desire. And you can do whatever you want to do.
I have a dear friend of mine who always was in trouble with knucklehead in high school. And one day, the teacher, I guess it was either the algebra, I forgot if it was an algebra or physics or whatever, but this kid was struggling, just like you. And the teacher said, Fred, you can do this. You have an analytical mind. And those few words changed his concept of himself to the point that he got a degree. He never even thought about going to college, because like I said, he was not academically oriented, at least he thought. Those few words to him caused him to come to USF, get a degree in physics, and now he owns a very successful business where they build sensors for the Department of Defense, and he's very successful. But if you talk to him, when he was selling paint in a paint store, when someone said, you know, you ought to go and apply, they're going to build a university out there. Here. And he applied, and the rest is history, and he's very successful. And I think one of the things that we need to continually remind teachers of is that I don't care if they're teaching high school kids, they're all works in progress.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. When they're about to graduate from high school at 17, 18, whatever, they're a work in progress. And they will continue to be, just like some of us who were knuckleheads. But at some point, the light came on, right? And I think that's, we can't give up on them, is my bottom line.
Absolutely.
So any more high school?
I have another, it's a slightly different one.
Questions from the audience.
I think that, with two things. One key, it's been said already, but I got to say it again by others. Keep helping these young people get the message that they're worthwhile. I don't care what it is. Keep giving them that message. What happened to me was not actually in school, but when I was at that age. I went to a Boy Scout meeting, and there was a guy that was a radio amateur, and he had a demonstration there, and it was all over me. That was what I was going to do with my life. And the message for me, for you, is wherever you can, help your students get a sense as to what they might be doing if they are doing a particular field. So many of my students here at USF, in our department, when you talk to them, you realize they don't know what they are getting into. My department's industrial engineering. And talk to them, well, what are you going to do when you're in industrial engineering? Well, I guess I don't know. So why are you doing this? Well, somebody said it'd be interesting. Or somebody else said it's easier than electrical engineering. That's what they say. Turns out, by the way, that may have been true at one time. It no longer is. You got a question back there?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think the engineering expo that you guys have here, like I bring my kids here every year, and that really opens their eyes to some of the different things that they can do. Because that's not in our curriculum or anything that we teach, all the different things that you can, what is an engineer and how many different types are there and what do they actually do. I think you guys do a good job with that.
Thank you. We like to believe we do, but it's nice to hear that others see it that way. Yeah. One other thing, so that got me into electrical engineering, but the other thing was totally separate. And I can't tell you how this was valuable, but this was valuable. I had an English teacher, this was middle school, and he brought in a friend of his who was the city editor for the Daily News. Now everybody knows this was New York City, obviously. He was a city editor for the Daily News, and he came in and talked to our class, and he told us things like, in those days, there were multiple editions. There was the first edition, which came out around 1 o'clock, and then there was the second, and there was the late, then there was the sports final, and then there was another. It was 7 or 8 editions every day. The Daily News had the first edition that had a story. New story broke, they got it. Absolutely. It's on the cover. Maybe wrong. So they went and bought the first edition of the New York Times, whenever that came out, which was an hour or two later. Read the same story, corrected their own, and now they were back in the same. But they didn't care they were wrong. They were first. That's a lot of years ago. I remember that vividly. And that's not engineering experience. That's a life experience. What's the world really like? Because that's what you're going to have to deal with. That's what
As you look out, most of us are women out here, and I'm not trying to go from that, but you said you hired a young lady. I have a niece that's a mechanical engineer. Her dad's an electrical engineer, so I think it was more like, you will take this road. type thing. What can we do to encourage our young women to look at a field like this? Or, I mean, the creative part, we'll all work on that, but this innovative, because no offense, but I'm looking at a bunch of guys up here, from that standpoint. What can we do to get our younger women involved in this?
Wow, I've had the opportunity to work with some great women in engineering. When I was at BU, I was a teaching assistant, and the professor I worked for, she is an incredible woman, and we're tight to this day. I like to consider her one of my close friends. I mean, Marilyn, for example, great in the field. And the facility I came from, where I work now, the place I was at before BLAC, the plant manager is a woman. The ops manager that I worked with, who's got her degree in operations management / sort of like an industrial engineer. Woman, she now works at I think Plasma Therm in the St. Pete area. So I don't think this is typical anymore.
Okay.
This day and age. I think this is just how
It was when some of us
right. I think this is this particularly probably just how schedules worked out and so forth like that. I was at a panel a couple weeks ago that was hosted by Bama here, I think just a couple blocks away, for vets. There's a professional class that the vets have to take or whatever, and half of the panel were women from manufacturing. So three of my team, my 9 team members are women. So we're above average on the representation of women. Some of the best machinists I worked with are women. So I think we all sort of have prejudice ingrained in us, and I think where we step above that is where we recognize those prejudices and we try to take actions to overcome those. And so I don't know if I'm overcompensating or whatever, and I go out of my way to try to interview more women or whatever, but I do know that they're definitely a contributing part of manufacturing, especially in this area. And I think it's quite visible in the leadership. Thank you.
There's a false conception of manufacturing and dirty. People think manufacturing, these people got to walk out of there with grease all over them and stuff like that. With CNC machines and stuff, everything's done behind doors. You're using your brain and stuff.
Yeah.
Get your class to go on a tour, a shop tour of a manufacturing place. You say how to get women involved, let them do that. Let them come through the tours. We have so many young women, when they come through the tours, have the best questions, the most focused into, wow, that's what you guys do here? Yeah. Like in inspection, for me at least, Joe does the tours out on the shop floor, but in inspection, the women are always so detail focused on everything that they get it. Yeah. They ask all the right questions. But there's that misconception of manufacturing being dirty. And I don't know whether that deters women away from there, and I don't want to be a grease monkey or anything like that, but it's manufacturing's not that way anymore.
Although I've got a little 5-year-old daughter, and I get her out and change oil with me and stuff like that, and I have her watch How It's Made with me and stuff like that. I don't get them away from the 17 magazine, give them Popular Mechanics. Yeah. I think I saw a great article the other day. You look at Boys Life or something like that, and the things that were on the cover of Boys Life, and then they took a young girls magazine and stuff that was all like makeup and stuff like that. Like, we do it to her. We do it to her. We lead them down the wrong path to begin with.
I think there's another issue. First, we have in USF engineering still a relatively small percentage of women. Richard, do you have any idea how many we have percentage-wise?
I don't know, but chemical engineering has more than any other.
And what fraction is that? 30%?
Yes.
About 30%.
And what department are you in?
Chemical engineering. And in other fields,
hardest engineering part.
Industrial engineering has a similar number, but overall that's what we run. And I think part of that is that young women get the message that, and I don't know why, that technical stuff, physics, math, are not for them. Maybe it's those magazines you were just talking about. I don't know. But I will tell you this, every young woman that I see as a student is almost always among the best students I have. If they become engineering students, they're the best. But it's got to be, but we have a lot of students that are male that are not very good, and probably don't belong there for various reasons.
So actually, Paul, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I thought you were talking about faculty that are women.
Well, that too is another issue.
The student body, the undergraduate BS degree program in chemical engineering, the women students easily over the last 10 years went from 25%, now it's like 49 or 50.
Okay, that's good.
I have a class
Where it should be.
today.
That's where they should be. That's where I'd like to see them, yeah.
It has 90 kids in it, and there are, without a doubt, 40, 45 women.
I got a great story. When I was in my bachelor program at BU, we hosted an event where middle school, I think it was 7th grader, young ladies would come in and we would do an expo of the various engineering, and we had a really small jet engine with a big cutaway, and we would wheel it over to the area where the students come in and look at the various things. And so we had the AIAA student chapter was really involved with that, and a young myself was an officer at the time, and one of the other officers, a woman by the name of Kelly. So she and I were standing there behind the jet engine, and as the students were coming up and asking us questions, one of the students asked Kelly, she's like, you really like this stuff? as if Kelly was forced to be there or something, she wasn't there on her own accord. And so that tells me that somebody, or she's got this culture ingrained into her that's not right. And I look around here, we got 13% men? I look around, about 25, 30 people here, 3 guys, 4 guys maybe, right? So if they're not getting the picture, you only got your own to blame, your own selves to blame. That's all I got to say about that.
I'd just like to make one quick point.
I'd like to make a comment about the question about what you can do in your classroom with the great women. I can tell you what I do in my classroom is it just takes just a little bit more effort, but every one of those young ladies knows that I expect them not to back away from whatever it is. The math is more difficult, I don't expect them to step back. If the concept is a little more difficult, whatever it is, they do know that I really want them not to step back from the challenge. So I think that works in every grade level, any topic area. You expect a little, maybe you're going to come back and say I expect too much of it or more of them. And maybe I do, but I expect the women in my classroom to not back away from anything, including harassment or anything else. That's immaterial. That's a given. But anything intellectual or challenging, I don't get on their case about it, but I do expect them to do better. So that's what
I teach 5th grade, and I teach math and science. So it's one of those things. A lot of times we don't see that end result with the kids. I mean, every once in a while you'll have a kid will come back, but unfortunately sometimes we move schools, and a kid comes back and you're not there anymore. But it's every once in a while you come across a kid go, you really pushed me. I mean, because I tell them my expectations are up here. That's where they were for my own children, and you're my kids, and there's no different expectation for you. It's up here. I'm not satisfied with this. It's got to be up here. But sometimes I think we don't see that, down the road, as to what's going on. But I mean, that's just how I run the classroom. I'm not to say it's right, because that's how it goes in mine. But
But it sounds like you teach like my wife. She was.
Yeah, I'm the hard one. I mean,
She would take, if she had the lowest kids, sometimes they'd make 2 or 3 grades in that one year with her. But sometimes the higher kids, but she would force whatever they did to do the best. But getting back to the women, I deal a lot with heavy industry, and I'm seeing more and more women engineers at FPL, TECO, some of the paper mills, phosphate mines, and they are going like this in those companies. So if you can encourage them to get into those fields, it's wide open once they get in there, because I think their people skills and their ability to take the things they learned in school and apply them in what you teach, the management. They may have better skills than a lot of the guys. So, yeah, encourage them as much as you can.
I can tell you that the panel right now is made up of all males. Yeah, that's correct, obviously, you can see that. However, I believe somebody said something about a scheduling conflict, and if there wasn't a scheduling conflict from our company, Al and I wouldn't be here. The owner and his daughter, who's very, very active in our company. She's the HR, she's the IT, she's part of our management team, takes a very active role in our company. She would have been here, so you wouldn't have us good-looking guys to look at, but that'd be okay. I mean, that'd be okay, though.
But she is a very pretty woman. Unless you guys want to say otherwise.
No, absolutely.
This is being videotaped.
Are we still on? Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
I teach culinary in middle school, and the one thing I've come across is, and see, my dad was a contractor, so power tools, I love power tools. I've hung shelves, I've hung ceiling fans, and not broken a nail. And a lot of the girls come up to me, and boys, and they see me in one picture, and they don't understand you can be both as a woman. They don't want to, they have the vision of mechanical engineer and this and this and that as being grubby, or you can't be cute, you can't have your hair done, you can't have your nail. In all seriousness, this is how they bridle. And then when I tell them, I'm like, what'd you do this weekend? Miss Grant said, I hung my daughter's ceiling fan. You did what? And then the boys are like, what do you know about hanging ceiling fans? I'm like, dude, I can tell you the tools to use, I can tell you that I leveled it off, I can tell you this and that. And the girls are now like, wait a minute, you can do this and this and still look like a woman. And I think there's a conflict there, because the average girl who's not a tomboy still wants to be a girl, and she doesn't want to be made to feel like there's something weird about her because she likes math, because she likes science, because she likes working with her hands. And they don't understand that you can, as women, that's the beauty of being women. We can do it all. Don't let anybody ever make you feel bad. I said, so what? You go on, you put on a pair of, whatever, go do what you gotta do, and then go back and get your hair done later on, and you'll be just fine. But it's like there's a split. If you're gonna be technology-based, science-based, math-based, you're a nerd. You're a geek. You look like one of the, ugly Bettys out there. If you want to be cute and attractive to the men, you have to look this way and play dumb. And you can't be an intellectual. You can't, and I see this on this level, and in my class I teach the emotional and social and all that other fun stuff. So hearing you guys talk about this, what I think is there has to be a way that you can merge the two and show that women can be beautiful, women can be attractive, women can be smart, women can still be girly, but then still run rings around y'all.
Maybe around them.
I could lose this tie.
And you can still be a first-degree black belt.
Yeah.
So they're
Go, Joe. No. Go ahead, big guy. I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up, Joe.
In this case, there's a separation that if you're going to be a girly girl, you have to be right-brained. If you're going to be a tom girl, you're left-brained, and none of the two shall meet.
You have to use all your brain.
Exactly.
I think sports has really helped females. You can be that athlete, and then you can turn around and be whoever you want to be.
I think along with all that is there's also a need to believe in them.
Yes.
There seems to be a disconnect in some cases, and and it doesn't necessarily apply. It applies not beyond even the education side. If you take that belief in somebody, even into the workplace, you'll find that they'll turn around. I had an employee recently who had a baby and wasn't coming into work in the right state of mind. And you have to kind of understand them and talk to them in their language. He was a football player in high school, and I know about football a little bit with my son. So I started talking to him in those regards, and he started believing in him. He's turned completely around and has become a model employee. Now, when it comes to girls, I think that it's very important that they also have mentors that they can go to and be able to talk about the issues that you just brought up, how to be a woman and be a good employee and knowledgeable in the technical field. So I encourage all my engineers, especially women engineers, to go out and help younger girls to get involved and get more education and keep striving for improvements in that whole category.
My daughter is an example of the mix that you're talking about. She got a bachelor's degree in architecture and decided she really didn't want to do architecture. She liked building stuff, and she got a job as a site manager for a high-scale home builder. They were building $750,000 houses back when that was serious money. And in 8 years, she completed 32 homes, all on time, all custom made because the buyers all wanted things their own way. But she went into work. She worked in a trailer, on a site. What'd she wear? She wore a beautiful blouse, jeans, work boots. She could drive a nail and put in studs. She could lay out a roof. She could do electrical wiring. She could do plumbing. She could do it all. And all these guys, they were all men, worked for her as contractors. And they learned quickly that they weren't going to put anything over on Robin. And that company paid them on time, and if Robin didn't like somebody, they were out. You got another contractor. Everybody wanted to work for that company. She delivered, but she was doing what you're talking about. Girly girl.
Yeah.
I've got 2 granddaughters with her now. But yeah, it works.
It does, because I know that I have a daughter and she's in sports, and I totally agree. I think sports actually brings a certain part of the brain into a different level than just playing with dolls all the time. And she'll sit up here, she saw that I realized that on my battery of my car there was some corrosion. I said, okay, go into 7-Eleven, get me a bottle of Coke, get me an old toothbrush, let's go. And she's like, Mom, but you're in a white skirt and a blouse. I'm like, I'm not jumping in the engine. So I mean, and now, so when I see her, I step back and I'm like, she's sitting up here going, Mom, I want to hang this picture. You know where the tools are. And she's like, she goes up, measures everything, and I got this. So I mean, it is doable. It's just, we have to tell our girls, instead of saying to themselves, I'm just not good at math. No, you're good at whatever you want to do. It's just it might take you a different way to achieve the same goal.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Right, not yet. Because I tell them I'm dyslexic. I made it through. I have a bachelor's degree. I still go to trainings. I still can pick up on things. I read ferociously. I just had to figure out my way.
Right.
And by them understanding that just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you cannot be left-brained.
So perhaps one other thought related to a specific question about women, young girls in high school. Find role models that are the same age. I'm pretty lucky in that respect, because in my office I have 2 pictures of my granddaughter. And a lot of the women in my classes come to my office because I don't let them slide away from trying to figure out what the problem is, math or science. When they're in my office, they have to stare at the 2 pictures of my granddaughter. Why? Because she's a junior, all right, same age, plus or minus. One picture, she is in a regional ballet production, all right? So regional ballet hires local kids who are really good ballerinas. Got that picture in the typical 3-point phase. The other picture, it shows her being qualified to fire every weapon on a Coast Guard vessel, because the school she's in is the United States Coast Guard Academy. So here's 2 different images of a woman. One who I would not want to get near if I was smuggling in fire. All right? and the other one who's quite willing to go to a ballet, and given 10 seconds, will be on the stage trying to dance. So find models in their age level and stay away from the superstars. Just you'll find kids in Tampa Bay that are doing both. They'll fix a car and they're part of the singing group. That just find a model that, and you don't have to say anything. I can see these young women when they look at them because they ask me, and I just say, well, she's a junior, just like you are, but she happens to be in engineering school at the Coast Guard Academy. And that happened because nobody let her not finish something she wanted to study. Maybe that's a little harder than on a boy, but that's what I think you have to do at the edge there. They say they're going to do it, don't let them back off.
I'm going to take you guys a bit off the hook because you can do the best you can do, and if the family that they're coming from is problematic, you're still going to not be able to be as successful as you'd like. So please don't beat yourself up if you have a student you can't quite reach, because it may not be you.
What about question 3, Mary?
Well, I think we kind of talked about the next 2 questions, but oh, she's got the thing. So we could just take a look at them. Let's see.
Oh, here,
You want me to try? You want to hobble over?
I'll hobble.
Or maybe I can try. Oh, there we go. So this week, I think we addressed some of these kinds of questions.
Everybody.
Who in your company makes it happen? It sounds like everybody.
Yeah.
I think that was the unanimous thing. And then are they recognized publicly? And I think that was also pretty unanimous from a lot of different points of view. So I think we did that one. And how do you try to encourage new employees to innovate and be creative? And we heard lots of examples of that, I think, today. I think Peter beats him up with it. It says, you must do that. But a lot of different examples. So since they're all here and working, and I actually went through all this myself. I was an engineering student at this fine university right here. I got my PhD a number of years ago. In my first life, I was a scientist, but when I came to engineering school, it wasn't that much fun because I was the only woman in my structuralist class, and I decided not to study structures because I was the only woman in that class, and it was a really uncomfortable environment. So I chose a different path and went into environmental engineering, and that was a better fit for me, and I was much more comfortable. So there are those moments. However, I was also an adult. I had already worked for 10 years because I had my bachelor's degree in chemistry. I worked as a chemist and a scientist for a long time. Decided I wanted to be an engineer one day and went to engineering school, and didn't even know what the first course meant when I did there. But I came to a point where I had to make a decision, because I knew I would never finish if I went down the one road. And had to take a different path for myself to find a place where I was more comfortable to work within an environment that I thought I could get through. So granted, this was in the late 70s and the early 80s, and there were a lot fewer women in the College of Engineering here, probably across the country. So there's challenges, but you just have to figure out what I still wanted to be an engineer. So I just found another way to do it, to get to the goal that I had at that point in time. So there's lots of obstacles for all of us. I'm sure you all have the same obstacles in your pursuit. And helping kids find their own way. We often give them a little too much, sometimes to get them through school, get them through life, that they need to, maybe more standing on their own feet and being told that they can do it, as well as that they need to build their confidence, their own self-confidence, because I think that's one of the core pieces of what has to happen in school, and with the not yet part, if we're going to go back to that as our rah-rah for tonight, that we really have to feel good about yourself in order to do whatever it is you want to do, and then you can do right brain, left brain. I always got them mixed up because I never really paid attention, but I knew that there were places that I wasn't going to be. But you can certainly do as much as you want, and we can help the children do all of that. I think what's important tonight was that that it's not just something that has bubbled up from nowhere in the somewhere that says, okay, now we really might want to think about some other new teaching strategies. This is a constant change process I've seen over the years, but maybe getting to helping more children understand that they can do things, that they can move forward, that they can accomplish the task no matter what the tasks are, and get on track and work their way into a better life. So supporting them, being maybe more facilitative than do this page of arithmetic. I remember many of those, do these multiplication tables. I got a 0 in phonics, that's why I knew I was never going to be a writer. In the 2nd grade, that's what I remember from my K-12. That's not for me, right away. But I was really good at those multiplication tables. So I think that's it's a lot harder when we don't just judge right or wrong. It's a lot harder to assess students, but we should probably think less about assessment, even in light of testing, and more about encouraging them, because I think you'll just see the results will speak for themselves, and the students that are confident will be willing to learn more than they have been. And we need that kind of open thinking in today's world, because everything is changing so fast. We have so many new technologies every day. We have so many new ideas. There's so many more people that we have to deal with, that whole speed of information transfer and information, getting information in is just going very fast, and everybody has to compile all that in a really efficient manner to use it, so we progress as a society and we make better products, we make them faster, we make them safer, women like that, make them safer, make their lives easier, those kinds of things that we do, that engineers do. So I think it's a kind of a nexus of the new world that we live in, being so fast, so technological, so much information coming to everybody, that just dealing with some of that all of the time, every day, and integrating it into their lives and into their learning experiences is important. Because it overwhelms us every day, I'm sure, every one of us, but it must be twice as overwhelming for the young people, and helping them